today I think is a very important day because we collectively get to decide what ends up on the roadmap and what doesn't. And there is a whole plan about how to go about this. So Kim went over it yesterday. In case you missed that, Kim, I'm going to ask you to go over that one more time. And then I'll pass it over to you and Sam, and we can take it from there.
Great, good, and welcome everyone, and thank you guys for joining us for this last day. Yeah, so this is the time where the audience really gets involved. So participation is key for this last day, or hurrah, because it's really about figuring out what the team is going to be working on for the next 8 weeks until we meet again, whether it be virtually or perhaps in person. So if you go to mojaloop.io vote, and I'll share my screen here, basically what we're going to do is walk through the different items on the roadmap. And these were all sessions that we discussed at different times, and so hopefully you can see the roadmap there. So these were things we discussed over the last course of days as well, and we're going to go through them one by one just to talk about the business value. We're going to give folks on the phone that are here that are Workstream owners about just 2 minutes if they want to recap the business value of the particular title. And then once we're done with that in the course of the hour, we're going to go vote. And there's a link here on that called Power Noodle. And everybody can vote on the top 3 topics. And I showed that yesterday. It's pretty straightforward. You can use those 3 votes on all 3, on 1, 2, or 3. You can change your vote any time. But an hour and a half into the session, we're going to actually cap the voting. So after we break, we're going to give folks a half hour to vote and then another half hour to get coffee. But only that half hour to vote. And once we close the votes, we're going to come back and we're going to have breakout discussions on those sessions. So with that, like I said, if you want to pull up that mojaloop.io/vote, the chat window has that link there. We'll go through these sessions and then we'll give people the time to vote. But again, you can vote at any time as well. Just a note, if folks voted last night, we did have to add an additional session, so that might have messed up your vote. So if you did vote last night, yesterday, after our sessions, just please go back and check and revote if need be. So with that, I know I have some colleagues on the phone, Sam and Warren, and some of the folks that are going to help lead us through some of these, but we'll go through these fast and furious. If there's any questions, please raise your hand. So Sam, do you want to kick us off for some of these, and then we'll grab some Workstream owners?
Thank you, Kim. Sure. Is it okay if I present?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So let me share my screen quickly. Yeah, roadmap. I just added those topics there, broke them down into 2 slides. I guess we can skip these. The accountability, typically we do that. But so thanks, Kim. We've broken this down, the total list of 22 items into 2 lists. The first list is about the things that need to be prioritized. For example, all the 10 topics here. There is a weird numbering here just to make sure that Power Noodle doesn't interfere with the numbering of the others. But essentially, these are the items that will be prioritized if they get voted in one of the top 8 things. Is it 8, Kim, that we are picking?
We're picking top 8 out of the 22, correct?
So yeah, if it makes to the top 8, then essentially the community is saying that we want this feature to be added on the core. So the core team will definitely try, or one of the other teams will take a look and see if they want to commit to that. The second list is the ones that have stream owners and are continuing. For example, the code quality and security, the testing toolkit, settlement V2 will continue. But what the community can do here is definitely be involved in the conversation to identify priority features or topics that they'd like to be done in P11. Don't want to take too much time there, but with that, we'll go into the discussion.
Right. And Sam, you bring up an important point too. Just because we're the top 8, that doesn't mean we're not going to work on the other things. There's certain core things we have to work on. And by all means, if the community wants to, they can continue to work on things. It's just the top 8 is what we're actually going to prioritize and talk about during today.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim. Yeah. So with that, I will go into the items. Some of these have dedicated owners. For some, we have Warren and Michael and other owners on the call. Adrian unfortunately wasn't there, but then they'll come up and give the context. We don't want to go into too much detail or talk about the roadmap items now itself, but just give enough or sufficient context so that all the attendees here can make an informed decision and vote. The first item, the forensic logging and secure auditing, we've been talking about it again for the past 2 convenings. This is necessary for regulatory purposes and SLAs and things like that, which provides essentially forensic logging and capabilities to the Mojaloop core services. Of course, this also is part of security, and this will be a significant topic itself, which will potentially span 2 program increments. The first will involve a design and doing a proof of concept and get it back to the community, the DA and other board stakeholders to make sure it's okay, and then standardize it. But I italicize that because yesterday, for those of you who were part of the POC session, realized that there will be a huge impact to how we do the events and what events are stored or done as included in the auditing reports, things like that. So there is a slight dependency on the performance POC or the architecture POC learnings and implementation, which I think had sufficient interest yesterday. So it may make sense to move to this after the performance POC is done this PI. On the second one, the performance POC learnings, we saw 3 options that were presented yesterday. Essentially, the first one about cherry picking the improvements and going into this PI by adding those. The second one is taking the current model without a pure event sourcing model as it is and replacing the current central ledger component with that after standardizing it. And the third one is essentially going a step ahead and doing the pure event sourcing so that later we can then standardize that. Obviously, the team itself, the performance team itself prefers the third approach, but this is about prioritizing that so that we can take that forward. I don't want to go too much detail into that, but Pedro, is there anything you'd like to add to that, or Miguel?
No, that's generally it. Those are the 3 options that we have. The only thing that's worth mentioning is that the third is not that much work from the second. It's just a matter of proving if the added complexity is worth it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. On the ticketing system, we wanted to do a proof of concept for integrating the core services with a widely used ticketing system as a reference implementation so that schemes they can then use as a reference, though they may actually use separate tools for ticketing system. So obviously this is a key or a critical component as Mojaloop goes into production. But there is a need, I think there was a need identified that having something as a reference in the open source makes sense. So this involves that. There is a second aspect to the ticketing system. It's about case management. It is also covered in the portals, but Rob helped us identify that this is a significant aspect which will involve, again, segregation of data, workflows, security, and other cascading interests. So again, this will also include role-based authentication, restricted access, and all that. So this topic is about the proof of concept for some system like this. If this gets prioritized, I think we want to see a POC done for a widely used ticketing system. On the portals, we discussed that again. We had a session that Hank and Rob did. And I think initially we were looking for a proof of concept in the open source space. I'm checking to see if Rob is on the call. Rob?
Yeah, still.
Yeah,
so the intention here is to actually build a proof of concept based on the fundamentals we identified the other day. We have to build this one way or the other because we have 2 live customers. So from a voting perspective, it'd be great to have other people involved on the user experience and flow perspective, and also their thoughts and challenges of the various frameworks as we ratify. Once we've got a framework that's clear, we'll bring that to the DA for submission, and hopefully that will give everyone a clear view on how we're proceeding and where we're going. That's my summary.
Thanks, Rob. Crisp and concise and sweet. Thank you. Going to the rules, we have the champion for Rules API, Michael, at hand.
Oh, yes. Okay, so as I explained yesterday, we have 2 live instances where we need to do per transfer evaluation of rules and take actions as a consequence of that. One of the things that we want to do is to make sure that with something that's important as this, we do it in the right way. And we provide a framework that other people can use going forward, and in particular a framework that, if at all possible, administrators can use to set rules for Mojaloop schemes without needing to involve either their own developers or, still less, the core developers. So this, we think, is going to be a very important part of the system's usability going forward, and that's why I am shamelessly throwing myself on your mercy yet again.
Thank you, Michael, for that. Yeah, I think we understand the importance of it now, so let's see where it comes up. Could probably give more context on the snap as well, but essentially I think we're looking for the design for this to begin with, at least in PI11, where we can enable split payments. If this comes up, I think we look at things like the changes to the API specification and sequence diagrams on how this can be done. Yeah,
I know the bit I would like to add to this is to say this is something which, I mean, it's great because actual people, potential users, came forward and said, here's a business opportunity, we could really make this work. One consequence of that is that they looked at it, and consequently we looked at it very much from their perspective. But actually, the more I think about it, the more I think what this is actually about is finding ways of allowing aggregators to operate in Mojaloop systems, i.e. people who are providing adjacencies, additional services on top of simple money transfer. They need a way to get into the system, and they need a way that supports the things, the sorts of things that they want to do, some of the examples of which you saw in Moses's excellent presentation. So I want to expand it from just talking about split payment to talking about how Mojaloop can expand its operations to include quality support for aggregators to be profitable participants in Mojaloop systems.
It's a good use case, additional use case. Thanks. Thank you, Michael. The standardized operations admin API is something that we've been discussing for a while as well, but did not see sufficient interest. We have the admin or the operations API. Currently, we do have, I think, 4 APIs now. The FSP interoperability API, the settlement API, and then the admin of the operations API, and of course, the third-party API as part of the PISP stream. So this API we initially added as part of the requirement to support onboarding, but it hasn't been put through rigorous reviews. But if the existing functionality is good enough for the implementations, I think it doesn't have sufficient priority. But if we want to optimize that and make sure that this API is also held to the same standards as the rest of them, I think we need to spend some dedicated effort there. So that's why we have it here. Moving on to number 8, streamline testing and QA. I think we are seeing for, we are in like PI 11 now, so we did a lot of feature work so far, and I think we need to, there's a need to consolidate and make sure that we have good testing and QA framework, like a one-time thing which we can then maintain after that PI. So currently we have several collections, but there is a need to streamline that based on the Mojaloop simulator, the legacy simulator we have using JWS, improving the reliability, the coverage, using the testing toolkit to test the hub. So there are quite a few things there, and I have that, I added those to the roadmap, or whoever is leading the stream, possibly Amar from the core team, will go into more detail there. And then we have another critical item I think we're seeing come up recently, which we included, I think, for the first time. Warren here, can you please give more context on the ISO 20022 adaptation?
Thanks, Sam. So we have ISO 20022 appearing in a number of places, actually. One is with the legacy payment solutions, where we try to map from and integrate Mojaloop in a cross-network manner to additional and existing services. And the other is actually around how to move, how to make sure that Mojaloop is meeting the international standards and requirements of ISO 20022 messaging within a Mojaloop way. So we actually, there's a lot of conversations that have picked up recently, and a lot of requests have come through on World Bank RFPs in particular, hence the reference in the voting forms. So what we're looking for is people in the community to engage in this conversation. We are imagining having a two-pronged approach to this, which actually Adrian has proposed to the Mojaloop Foundation board around having a white paper on explaining the benefits of the level one aligned based system around using the Mojaloop principles and using ISO 20022 as the messaging for that. And simultaneously actually to have a work stream to do a POC to see what would it actually take to do that. And our good friend Michael has actually been sharing some good thoughts on that as well, using the existing ISO messages. But we actually see doing this properly will involve going to the ISO standards board and possibly, recommending some new Mojaloop specific messages as well. So it's going to be a big piece of work, but I think it's essential for us to play the role we would like Mojaloop to play in the financial ecosystem.
Thanks, Warren. Looks like we already have Steve's and Miller's vote for that.
Excellent.
But I do get 3 votes, right? It's not just the one.
As long as you don't change your mind on this one.
Thank you. On the bulk transfers extensions, again, there were 3 items we discussed as part of the roadmap yesterday. Providing a bulk lookup and extending on the version 1.0 implementation where we have the lookup done independently. And then more advanced cases like a bulk make where the switch takes on the responsibility for breaking up a bulk and then aggregating the code sent to individual pay FSPs. Also an all or nothing configurable option. So I think these things, if the community, if let's say this comes up to the top 8, I think we will look at designing for those. Then we go into the streams that are already ongoing so that the breakout sessions can then look into what features need to be prioritized there. Kim, I'm happy if you want to take it from here, but otherwise I can continue. Godfrey, I think you're up for the code.
Yeah, Godfrey, if you want to just grab one. So if Godfrey's having problems with his mic, yeah, the Code Quality and Security Initiative, it really, as we talked about a couple days ago, really helps to make sure that we look at the best practices in the industry out there and then see where it's applicable to add those to Mojaloop. And then, of course, we have folks like Victor who help us bring in Wally best practices and some of the best practices from our implementators as well. So security and code quality is something that we constantly need to address because as we get more and more partners and more people get exposed to this, it's something that just needs to be top of mind and continuously improved as we roll out.
Cool. Thanks, Kim. Then we have cross-network and currency. Michael, can you please give us some insight into what it might look like for the next PI?
Yes. So, as I said in my presentation, we've been working with some potential non-Mojaloop networks this PI to see if we can evolve a way that looks like a winning way of connecting them to Mojaloop schemes. So what we would hope to do in this next PI is to create a proof of concept which would show how you could connect a non-Mojaloop scheme to a Mojaloop scheme via a cross-network provider. It would be great if we could get an actual cross-network provider to work with us on this, but if not, we would be happy with a proof of concept, I think, which enabled us to show that it was possible with, shall we say, a fictitious non-Mojaloop network. Oh, sorry. One other thing that I would like to say is that we talk a lot about interoperability and how Mojaloop is a great solution for interoperability, which it is. But when we look at what lies beyond interoperability for participants, it's going to be interoperability between networks. I think it's very unlikely that there will be one network to rule them all, and that what will happen in the next few years is that people will need to be much better than they are today about connecting heterogeneous real-time retail payment systems to each other. That's the area that we want to be working in. It's the area where we want to be able to show a lead to other people and hopefully drive this forward and really accelerate the ability to connect different kinds of networks with each other. That's it.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I don't know if Justice is ready, but we have the fraud management topic next. I promoted him to panelist.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm ready. Based on where we ended off with our presentation yesterday, the decision facing the community now is to decide how to go about building the specific solution. And that would be either something that is built directly as part of a Mojaloop Foundation initiative, or if an operator such as Mojaloop, for example, would like to take this into a private development build where they want to build the solution for their own benefit and maybe farm some of that development work back into the community. The decision that the community now has to take is, what exactly do you want to do with regards to a fraud risk management solution, and what is the approach that you want to take for the next steps? I think from a business point of view, we've pretty much reached the limit of what we are capable of analyzing and documenting and specifying. It's now a question of doing the real work in order to realize a fraud risk management solution for the community. And bearing in mind that something like that would need to be funded from somewhere. It would need to have a developer who would be willing to guide that process. And I think probably the biggest dependency for the development of a solution is the appointment of a product owner that is accountable to the Mojaloop Foundation and also accountable for the development and the realization of the strategic drive behind the development of a Mojaloop fraud risk management component.
Thank you, Justice. Go ahead, Kim.
Oh yeah, no, I just did. I think that's great. I think Simeon, if you want to basically just talk about the next one.
Sure. In terms of leadership and community management, we're thinking about four things about the next PI. There have been ongoing conversations about restructuring the community governance committees. That is the Design Authority, the Change Control Board, and the Community Leadership Committee. Just make them more inclusive, find pathways for people to participate, and have clear structures and policies that govern each of those committees. The second thing is that we're looking to work on in the next PI is the community membership model, just having a more defined community membership profiles and structures. And tied closely to that is looking at the current working structures, whether it's the work streams, how effective they may be, and coming up with new ideas or new ways to make that easier. And then 3, a focus on stakeholder engagement with a view to do 2 things. 1, position Mojaloop as a thought leader in the financial inclusion ecosystem, but also focusing on the entrepreneurs and seeing, and the people in the fintech sector, seeing how Mojaloop can be relevant to them and what the value add is for them and how they can input and participate into the community. Then lastly is thinking through the onboarding, just focusing on implementing the Dev Hub and tracking the metrics along with that. That's all from the community side.
Right.
Thank you, Simeon. I think we do have Adrian and Don on the call. I don't know if Adrian, but yeah, we have the LPS adapter enhancements.
Cool. Yeah, so just for the LPS adapter, just a reminder that this mapped the ISO 8583 messages into the Mojaloop messaging system. So last time we showed that demonstrated the ATM and point of sale use cases. So right now, the enhancements would be just from like an operator side, how would you actually use this and how would it integrate with any like accounting based systems that you would be using for it. And then the second one would also be using it as a basis for like a POC for the integration into the ISO 20022 stuff that Warren talked about earlier. Yeah, and that's about it.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Don. And then I don't know if Lewis or JJ are on to talk about the...
Yeah.
Oh, great, Lewis. Hey, Lewis, I'm sure you're on, of course.
I'm always here. No, I'm not always here. But yes, payment integration to the we are continuing our work in the transfers flow. So the goal kind of being to make a end-to-end transfers in a test environment that proves that end-to-end transfers are possible from the PASP. Additionally, kind of expanding some of our work on the sign-up, the credential registration steps, and the auth service that we've been working on with the Google interns. Some of the other kind of questions that have been thrown out there that would be great to tackle if this does get enough votes would just be around integrating with the web payment stuff that Coyle presented, seeing how we might be able to work together on that. I know that Istvan and the MyFirst guys / DPC guys have been thinking about PASP as well, so seeing how we might be able to work together. We might be ready in this PI, maybe not, to kind of demonstrate a PASP lab with those guys as well. So there's a few kind of open questions to be answered.
Great. Thank you, Lewis. And I know Istvan is on the call, so do you want to talk about MyFirst a little bit? Recap some of the talk? Great.
Yep, here I am. And besides MyFirst Payment Hub, I would say that this point gets updated to say that DFSP operational tools, which includes this Payment Hub Enterprise Edition, but it includes the Payment Manager. So we started the discussion at how to provide a single platform for DFSPs to integrate. And the idea, which someone put it very nicely, that design and develop of tools for enabling DFSPs and integrators, supporting them to efficiently connect to Mojaloop and effectively participate in Mojaloop payment systems from a business and technical perspective. And this includes like the payment manager from Modusbox or the payment hubby from MyFirst, and we are already working to try to synchronize these efforts to have a single offering for all of these DFSPs.
Great, thank you for that. Michael, do you want to talk about Settlement V2?
I do, but I can only do that if I unmute myself.
Yeah.
We've got a good way, I think, in the previous PI with including continuous gross settlement into the core capabilities of the system. What we need to do now is to make settlement more flexible, and in particular to start responding to the expressed requirements of Mawali, in particular, to be able to define settlement contents with greater granularity than they can at the moment, and to be able to do settlement on demand so that they can decide to settle some of the components of a settlement window without settling the rest of them. So these, again, are improvements in the usability, flexibility of the system, which will benefit everybody.
Great. Okay. Dan, do you want to talk about testing toolkit? Or?
Yeah, it's good. So in the testing toolkit, I think it is now in a place where it can be used by FSPs for onboarding, and we wanted to have that to enable scaling and ease the burden on the schemes. And so far it's been looking good, but the only thing we're looking for is a wider adoption. So this upcoming PI, we want to support as many adopters as possible. Mawali, Tips, whoever is going to work with their FSPs, we want to use this, help them rapidly decrease the amount taken for onboarding by the capabilities. We also want to take the feedback from the community to see what are the things they would like to see in the toolkit to help this process as well. We have a few roadmap items that Vijay will champion that work stream and take over, but we do have some items. But if the community comes up with something that's more important, and if it fits in the timeline, we'll definitely add that to the list. Thank you. Thanks.
Lewis, do you want to jump back in for versioning now?
Yes, certainly. So yeah, I think we had some recommendations at the end of our versioning presentation. the main thing that we're currently thinking about is this K8 patcher, so improving the operator Kubernetes operator to do kind of Docker security patching, and expanding the features around that. But really, this is kind of wide open for recommendations, and we have a few things we want to think about and we are thinking about doing, but it'd be great to get some input on where the community sees us as important. Like we've said before, this isn't the most urgent stuff with the versioning. There's certainly more urgent things, but this is the type of stuff that we're trying to ease the burden of getting ourselves stuck into corners when it comes to upgrading Mojaloop and the like. So yeah, I think that's just about it.
Yeah, if I may add to that, Lewis, I think we agree that we're like looking for involvement from the commercial partners, more like the implementers who actually have live implementations, so that can give more insight into the issues that they're facing and how proper versioning standards can help.
Yeah, well put.
Great. Okay. And then Don, do you want to just give us a recap on the web payments?
Yeah, so the web payments, we basically demonstrated like a first-party web payment handler using mobile money. But it would, like, as Lewis said, it would be really interesting to like sort of merge this with the payment, the PISP workstream, to see what it would look like to do this for, like, make a Mojaloop payment handler, and also leverage a lot of the work that they're doing with Fido to create slick, like, user checkout experiences.
Great, thank you. And I don't believe anybody's on from GSMA Lab, am I incorrect? But what we heard yesterday, obviously the lab is live, so it went live on the 1st of this month, and it's accessible. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Bruno,
I was not as a panelist.
Bruno, thank you.
I'm here.
Good, okay.
Nice, thank you. So for the GSMA interoperability test platform, we will be improving our roadmap. So if you look in GitHub issues, we have some roadmap that we want to work and improve the number of use case and test case. Would be really grateful to have the community supporting on, especially on the use case and what will be more useful for that.
Perfect. Okay, that is our list. Did anybody have anything else? Because I think what we can try to do is pull in the agenda a little bit early and vote a little bit early.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, so I think everybody had their piece, and if you want to go again, if you go to mojaloop.io/vote, that has all 22 of the work streams in there, along with the business discussions and the summary of why you need to vote for them and the business value. And then we'll put, once you're ready to vote, go to Power Noodle. We'll put the vote to link into the chat right there. Simeon just put it in there. And again, each person has 3 votes. You can go ahead and change your votes. And let's give ourselves 26 minutes to do that. Okay, and we'll stop the voting at the top of the hour, and then we'll take a half-hour break. And what we're going to do is actually come back here. So that would be, let's see, what time would that be for, gee. I know it's 8:30 my time.
I think 12:30 we'd start the workstream discussion.
So we'll do the workstream breakout discussions, and what we'll do during that time is let me show you my page here. Is when you come back and look at either this particular session, you will see that we'll have the agenda up, or you can go to the agenda directly, and we will update these session links for 8 separate Zoom sessions. So you can come back and either look at this page, we'll go to mojaloop.io/dex, we'll post this in Slack, or you can come back to the main actual live stream. And we'll have 8 sessions, and immediately, again, we'll do this at 12:30, not at 1. We'll join these workout discussions and sessions, and we'll go through and have live discussions about several different things. What we'd like to accomplish in the next 10 weeks, what we believe the PI objectives will be, as well as any risks we identify, any dependencies with other work streams. So obviously, like we talked about with performance and some of the POC work with some of the different work streams there. And then we'll actually report on that, come back here at 2 o'clock p.m. to report back on those different 8 work streams we talked about. We'll be using the mirror boards. I sent those out to the work stream owners. Those are the folks that will be updating those boards and presenting back. So I'll pause. Any questions with that? So I will update the timings of this. Again, we're a little bit early here. So again, we'll vote immediately. Be closing the vote. We'll do that at 12:30, and then we'll go out and break the work for the work streams. Great. So with that, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and vote, and then rejoin the work streams. Again, come back here at 12:30 to rejoin those work stream discussions.
Happy voting, everyone.
Great.